Welcome back to the Craic, everyone, and do not adjust your screens. I know I'm not in my Blanchardstown studio. I am, in fact, in Belfast for the IBF welterweight title fight between Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan. It's their second meeting. It was fairly hairy the first time, with Paddy Donovan getting disqualified. He had a masterclass of a fight in the lead up to that. But of course, that is not the only boxing match happening this weekend. There's a big one, I hear, in Las Vegas between a man called Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. They had a bit of a press conference last night, which produced a lot of talking points, which we will be discussing today. There's also a UFC card, UFC Noche, I believe it is. Jean Silva, one of the show's favorites in action there. Very emotional when he was signing the posters earlier this week, if you haven't noticed. Now, I'm Petesy Carroll, as you know, but I do this show with a couple of guys, and they've become very big time, in fact, over the last few weeks. Like, they're doing all kinds of things. I'm going to have to bring them on now when we can talk about it because, here they are here. You might know them. Chuck Mindenhall, he's the one with the hat on there. And the other guy there, that's Ben, folks. Mr. Mindenhall, a genius that he is. We haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, but since we've seen him, I don't know if you heard about this, Ben. He has signed himself a big old book deal, and he's gracious enough to join us today. But Chuck, this is very exciting for all MMA fans. I don't know how exciting it is for our show. How are we going to keep you on this goddamn show with this book coming out and this new superstardom that's on the horizon for you, sir?
You have an inflated idea of what writing a book is. I think it's not. It's not what you're thinking. Although I did appreciate Ben. I wanted to get like the little extended cigarette, with the extender and the beret and the mink and all that stuff. I thought that would be a nice touch, just to fool you guys. But honestly, man, it is a cool thing. In a long story short, a publishing house contacted me about a book, and I kind of went back and forth, and I was like, well, the kind of vision that they were talking about. This is Ben Bella Books, by the way. The kind of vision they were talking about, I was like, I don't know if I'd want to write that book. But here's the book I would maybe want to write, and I kind of pitched it my own way, and they seemed to like that, and so here we are. It happened very quickly, and but it's something I've thought about, and I know, Ben, I probably talked to you about this over the years, but like it's something I've thought about probably for 13, 14 years. But when I initially had this idea, and this is basically an idea of maybe kind of interlaced essays in the Liebling-esque form, more like I'm not, you hate to set a bar even mentioning that name because I don't want the expectations to be off the charts.
You earned it.
But I mean, that's the idea, right? Is just to kind of give like a more irreverent approach through essays of the general game at large, MMA this time instead of boxing, probably UFC centric, obviously, and see where that goes. So they love the idea. I'll be working on that. But how the publishing industry is. This thing, you won't see it for at least 18 months. I mean, it's going to it takes the while to write, and then they have to go through the production and all that stuff. And but it will be on the horizon, and I will keep everybody updated as I go along here.
They contacted you? This is not how I thought the publishing industry worked at all.
I know.
Where they come to you and they're like, hey, how about write us a book?
Yeah,
I thought it was like you had to go around and basically be like, hey, look, I know people don't read books so much anymore, but...
Well, listen, man, like the way that this worked, and so the fight game was like about... It was an idea I had based kind of like the Sweet Science, where the Sweet Science was based on 1951 to 54, 55 when labeling was... kind of on the scene. And back then everything was very different, obviously. So you write something similar. I guess what you look at it from like an elevated view of it, like kind of humorous, tapping your foot as you're watching some of the stuff happen. Mine would be probably the whole of MMA, like basically looking at, because it's such a young sport. But I had this idea, I'd say back in 2011, 2012. I was like, and so I pitched it. I did what you're talking about. I went around, I was like, hey man, I'd love to write this book. Everybody kind of laughed it out, or they didn't respond at all. And as I look back on it, I think it was probably too soon for that kind of book anyway, because, you look at what had not happened yet. There was no Conor McGregor yet. There was no big boom with Ronda Rousey. There was a lot of the big things that have happened over the years, and a lot of the, hypocrisies and everything else that have solidified and materialized over time, like that to be the truth now, are all in better focus. So I feel like it was a blessing in disguise that I didn't try to do this earlier, and you wait a little while until somebody does approach. And I'm just as astonished as you. When I saw that come through, I was like, wow, I never thought I'd see the day that a publisher would actually just knock on my door.
That's amazing.
The first thing you got to think, author photos. The most important part is we got to think about what we're going with on the back of the book jacket. I think you want to do something. Obviously, we're going to be wearing a hat. I mean, that's a given.
I could throw people off and not wear the hat. What do you think?
I think maybe you go a totally different type of hat, maybe fireman hat, like a 5-year-old playing dress up or something. But I think we're gonna want, let's get a few different looks to, like, maybe you can bring them on the Craic. We can help you vote on some of them. One where you're doing like the thoughtful kneeling in the weeds kind of thing. One where you seem to be like doing research in a library and you're just holding up like a giant book and you're just like,
I like that.
Yes, like stuff like that.
Because we know there's giant tombs out there about MMA written. I just got to go through them.
Obviously, the long cigarette holder should come in at one point. Let's just get a lot of different looks, and we'll see what the audience thinks.
Deal.
Yeah, like you can do a lot with your hands as well, praying, like looking up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like divine inspiration kind of stuff. Like there's a lot we could do here, Chuck. Like I'm just saying. Maybe
I don't know if you ever read The Pugilist at Rest, the Tom Jones, I think it was, like books of short stories. Is that Tom Jones? Tom something. I'm totally butchering it, but he wrote
not unusual.
A collection of like boxing short stories, maybe in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and the picture, I believe, on the back of the book jacket of the copy I had was him sitting in a gym wrapping his hands. Very seriously wrapping his hands, and you're just like, I don't know, man. We might be over-promising here a little bit.
Well, and too many guys have done the participatory thing, right? Like, I'm definitely not doing that. I'm not George Plimpton. I remember Matthew Pauly, did tapped out, I think it was, which was actually a really good. I enjoyed that, but nah, man, that's not my speed. I'll probably do the fireman thing though.
Well, listen, Ben's given up a lot here to Chuck, but I don't know if you know this.
You buried the lead here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things happening in Missoula because of a certain man who appears on this podcast shuts down the local cinema so he can view the Smashing Machine, so he can tell us what it's like all about on this show. And it's not only that, Ben. Can I let them know what you're doing after this? Because I feel like we're gonna have to stop this episode. But no, don't worry. We're gonna be here for a while. We're gonna be here for about 90 minutes. But we're gonna have to have a very hard out because Mr. Fowlkes here, Big Time Ben, as I call him, going off to interview The Rock after this, Ben. This is pretty fucking crazy. Like the biggest superstar in the world, you're shutting down theaters in your hometown to go and watch his movie. Just tell us a little bit about this, please.
You say shutting down. It was more like opening up because they wanted to arrange a screening of this movie for me, and they were like, we have screenings in New York and LA, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to those since I live in Missoula, Montana. And they were just like, well, all right, what theaters are near you? We'll have somebody set up a screening for you. And I was just like, I don't know if you understand what the movie theater situation is around here, But I put him in touch with our local independent theater, which honestly is a great theater. I'm a sustaining member of the theater, which means you get free popcorn. They put the popcorn in the metal bowls for you and everything. You can get free refills.
That's really cool. That is really cool.
Wow.
I love this theater. It does a bunch of, it does, some like live event kind of stuff there, but like whenever there's an A24 movie comes out, this is the kind of theater you see it in. And so they were great. Shouts out to the Roxy Theater in Missoula for being so helpful right there on the hip strip. They put this together, but they were also baffled as to why they had to open the theater at noon on a Thursday, not their usual operating hours. This is a nighttime kind of theater. Nobody's going to see movies in, but they were very gracious. They opened it up for me. They even made me popcorn. I'll be honest, I brought some of my own snacks because I was like, they're not going to have the popcorn machine going. There's only one guy coming. But they made me the popcorn without me even asking. They were very, very kind to me. They were also very confused as to why this was happening, not the normal kind of thing that happens at that theater. But yeah, I got to see the movie. I saw it yesterday. I have thoughts. I have questions that I'm excited to ask. But for people who don't want to wait, I'll say it's a good movie. That is a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Well, there it is. There is the review of the Smashing Machine.
I love it.
All came from. Tell me.
I can imagine Ben walking in and they're like, "Wait, who's he with?" Then, like, they're looking around behind you, like, "Is he with somebody? Who just him? What's going on here?"
Yeah, they did say they were watching people passing on the street outside and being like, "Does that guy look like he would be here to see a movie?" And so, but you let me know when you want to get into, because I have a lot of thoughts on the movie, but I will say, like, for people who are out there, I know how it can be when you're a fight fan and you be like, you're making a movie about my thing, and there's a part of you that's just going, don't screw this up. Don't make me mad by not making a good movie about my thing. But then there's another part of you that's also like, it's going to be hard for me to turn off some parts of my brain and just enjoy it, since I know this world so well and since I'm in it so often. So it's a high bar to meet. And I'll say they met that bar. They created a really good movie about this world and this sport. I'd put it up there. And it's not like there's a ton of great MMA movies that's been made. I think right now, going into this, I've had Warrior as Warrior, and by that I mean the one with Nick Nolte and what's his name?
Hardy?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah.
That's a good MMA movie, I think, and the show Kingdom. Especially like the first season of Kingdom. Those were the two things where I was just like, those are pretty much the best things that's been made about MMA. This joins that category.
What about the one with Kevin James or whatever that guy's name was? Wasn't
Chuck,
there like,
Here comes the boom.
here comes the
playing
boom.
with me. Quit playing with me, Chuck.
Sorry, man, that wasn't the time for that joke.
But tell me this, right? Obviously, like we were showing this clip a few weeks ago. This feels like it could be kind of a movie that can elevate Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, into a new stratosphere. Like he's getting praised for his work here. We've seen the side by side. I can remember when it was announced first. Like I was like, I don't think he's gonna look much like Mark Kerr. He looks stunningly like Mark Kerr from what I've seen. How good is he in this role? Because as you know, as we've talked about, we must have seen the Smashing Machine 10 times at least, because it's such a legendary documentary. Like, did he live up to expectations in this role?
Honestly, he's really, really good in this. And I had my doubts as well. Not only about, like, can he look like Mark Kerr? And they did do that. I think the two categories where I think, even if this gets no other awards consideration, the two categories in which you got to give him at least a look is the prosthetics. Because the prosthetic stuff that they put on Dwayne Johnson to make him look more like Mark Kerr is subtle, and yet it works. It helps him kind of disappear into the character at least a little bit. Also, the hair, they're doing good hair stuff in this movie, and wardrobe. Because you might recall the late 90s and early 2000s was a hell of a time for men's fashions, especially like athletic bodybuilder adjacent men, where you're just like, how are you always in sports clothes and half of them are polos, and they nail it. They absolutely nail like so much of the look and the feel of that time period. And honestly, The Rock is amazing in this. I did not think that he had it in him to do, especially the kind of emotional nuance and complexity that this role requires, and that he really shows off here. Because I knew he could do the action movie stuff he always does. My kids loved him in Jumanji. They and I'm being serious. They're like Dr. Smolder Bravestone. They're like, hell yeah, he's great in that. He's great as the few kind of action movie tropes he's played. But I had serious doubts. Can he do something like this? And he does it. He absolutely nails it, especially because it's like you can see him changing the way he uses his body to mimic Mark Kerr's mannerisms. Because people who know Mark Kerr, and especially have seen that documentary where you're like, he's a giant man with these very gentle kind of mannerisms, almost as if he's learned a way of moving through the world to not scare people. And like he's very kind of delicate with the way he moves. And The Rock does that. And you can really see him physically kind of disappearing into the character, but also so many of these scenes, they're complicated scenes. There's like Mark Kerr both in the documentary and in this film, he's a man with a lot of contradictions going on. And so it's difficult, I think, to be able to like embody that without having to hit the viewer over the head with it and draw special attention to it. And they're doing it. They're doing it really well as like filmmakers, and he does it really, really well as an actor. And especially being opposite Emily Blunt, who she's fantastic. She's never been bad in anything. She's really, really good here in what is frankly a difficult role as Dawn Staples, because it's not a likable character at all, but she manages to get all the little nuances of it. And so he has a lot of scenes where it's just the two of them, and you could very easily be outacted in those if you're not up for it, because she is so good. And he honestly, you look at this and you come away and you'd be like, all right, if I needed to have it proved to me that The Rock can do other stuff, that he can do real serious dramatic roles, this does it.
Ben, did you walk away from that like with some better understanding, I guess, of why they would make a film about a documentary that had already been made. Like, because I felt like a lot of people when this was coming out, I was like, well, there's already a documentary about this. Why are they doing a film? I'm guessing an artistic license. But did you walk away from it saying like, okay, the movie had something to it that you're like, that's why it had to be told, in this form?
This is one of several questions I am excited to ask.
Okay.
Because I'm not only getting to talk to Rock, I'm getting to talk to Benny Safdie, who's a really good director and wrote and directed this thing. And so I really am curious about the motivation for some of these choices. Because you're right. When I saw the trailer, that was my first thought was, are we just recreating the documentary? Because you see in the trailer that scene where he's sitting in the doctor's office and talking to the woman in the waiting room at the doctor's office about what he does for a living, this type of fighting that he does. And that scene is almost word for word and shot for shot exactly what's in the documentary. And so when I saw that, I wondered, are we just going to do that over again? And there are a lot of scenes that are essentially recreations and like dramatizations of scenes in the documentary. And it's clearly a very intentional choice because not only is it the same words a lot of times and the exact same scenes doing the same work, it's the same camera angles. You can tell like somebody went through and really like crafted their movie to mimic a lot of parts or to dramatize a lot of the parts that you see in the documentary. If anything, it should be seen as high praise for the documentary because these people, like skilled filmmakers, looked at that and said, well, that's really good. We kind of just want to do that. And it added a few different scenes that did, like, everything they added was good. And it added some emotional depth. The movie does a good job of feeling like kind of stripped down and real, and which it should if you're mimicking it on something real, like if you have that to base it on. But it also does a few little touches here that are just subtle enough where you're showing like a little bit of the other stuff that's going on internally for Mark Kerr during all this. And it doesn't have any fat on it, really. It doesn't have any wasted scenes. It does a good job with what it has to work with, gets you in and out of there in about 2 hours. And I am curious, though, if it's like we wanted to make a story about Mark Kerr, do we watch the documentary and go, it's all right here? Because it's the same period of his life. It's the same events. I do wonder how it's going to read to people who haven't seen the documentary, because some of these scenes, they feel a little awkward and almost like too real to be comfortable in a movie. When you saw him in the documentary, you accepted it because you go, hey, that's how life is. Life can be like this. And you also accepted some parts of the arc because you were like, it's not just like guy comes along, meets some trouble, overcomes it, and triumphs. Like that's what we kind of expect of a movie. And real life isn't like that. It's easier for people to accept that in a documentary. I wonder how they will accept that when they see it in this film. And especially, like, I've read one review that said something about this, but particularly about Emily Blunt's portrayal of the Don Staples character, where they're like, it's kind of flat, and like, surely the real person it's based on was not just like this. And you're like,
oh my Lord.
Honestly, if you see the documentary, you go, that is kind of at least how she came off in the documentary. Like that is how it was. And I could see how people who haven't seen that and don't have that basis might come in and be like, I don't know, this seems a little weird or unbelievable to me, when really it is entirely believable because it all really happened.
Can I ask two questions? First one, is the plot of the movie there is a documentary being filmed about Mark Kerr, or is it? Okay. I was wondering,
they find different ways to do some of the same stuff, because there are moments in the documentary where we are learning things because the person is being interviewed for the documentary. Like Mark Coleman has a couple moments, especially, there's a moment early on where Mark Kerr's girlfriend has come with him to this pride fight that he's competing in Japan. And Mark Coleman doesn't love it. As his like kind of coach, training partner-ish. And he's in there in Mark Kerr's corner, and he says something to the documentary crew where he's like, I'm not a fan of bringing wives and girlfriends to fights. They should stay home because you can focus on what you have to do. And there's no one really for him to say that to in the film, so they have to find other ways. And they do pretty subtly and deftly find ways to show that that's what Mark Coleman is thinking. And at other points, they're being interviewed by the media. There's several scenes of them being interviewed by the media, particularly the Japanese media when they're over there in Japan. And things that we would see them saying to the documentary cameras, they are instead saying to a reporter who can just straight up ask those questions. So like it does manage to do some of the same stuff that way.
Second question. In that documentary, there are, as you say, like one of the most intriguing things I can remember about watching the documentary the first time is this kind of, he's a bit of a sweetheart, Mark Kerr. Like he looks like a fucking ogre. Like he's a big, massive guy, but he kind of seems to have this softness to him that's, it's very intriguing. But it's also these scenes of him fighting, and that dude was. He was the smashing machine. He was headbutting guys from full mount. I remember in one of the scenes. How good are the fight scenes? Like, I mean, that is important for someone like you, Ben, who has spent the guts of your life watching this sport. How effective are the fight scenes in the movie?
They're good. As far, with what we have to compare to other fight scenes in other movies, it's up there. It's better than I thought the fight scenes in what was the Halle Berry movie. That was one of the, Halle Berry was good in that movie, but also when you watch some of those fight scenes, you're like, oh, this does not at all feel believable. And I thought just kind of like structurally that movie was a little bit of a mess. But like the fight scenes are better than that. Maybe not quite as good as some of the stuff you see in Kingdom and Warrior, but still very good. Bruce, thank you, Jordan, the name of that Halle Berry movie. I don't recommend it necessarily.
I think it's great. I think it's my favorite one, actually.
Really?
No.
Okay. But especially it does the same exact stuff early on in the movie where we see Mark Kerr fighting essentially in a nightclub in Sao Paulo or something, where he's fighting in like these kind of like local, like small promotions in Brazil. And those scenes.
Yeah, that's where he started, right? That's the very first time.
It was the Brazilians, I think, who started calling him the Smashing Machine first. But like those scenes especially, they recreate it almost perfectly. And especially since I just went back and rewatched the documentary like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it was fresh in my mind, but I was like, they're doing it just move for move exactly the same. Some of the other fight scenes when we're doing the Pride 2000 Grand Prix, there's moments where you're like, this is clearly a movie. We are not really punching each other. I thought Ryan Bader was frankly a way better actor than you would ever think Ryan Bader could possibly be. He
plays Coleman, right?
He plays Mark Coleman. The only problem is, here's where I think it'll be a real benefit for the people who are just coming into the movie cold, not knowing anything, is because they'll just accept that's Mark Coleman. Like this guy plays a character named Mark Coleman, and he's a big character in the film. And for us, we're watching it, and at no point are you in danger of forgetting that is Ryan Bader. He does a good acting job, but he looks and talks and sounds like Ryan Bader, and he does not at all seem like Mark Coleman. And so you're just like, weird. You kind of can't get past that. But Alexander Usyk is in this as Igor Vovchanchyn. They even have a woman there to play the small, very polite blonde woman who was always with Igor. I don't know if that was a manager or interpreter, but she was always there in those Pride events. You'd always see her. They found somebody who crushes that role. Like the attention to detail in this is really impressive. And I love Boss Rutan as Boss Rutan.
Yeah.
It shouldn't
He nailed it.
It shouldn't work to have a guy come back 25 years later and play himself. And yet it does. He's so effortless, at least when he's playing Boss Rutan, the role he was literally born to play. Like he's so, like when you see Boss Rutan show up in this movie for the first time, I might have out loud said, "Boss!" Because you're just so happy to see him.
Stephen Quadros too. Quadros was in it.
Quadros is in it too. Yeah. And he still looks and sounds pretty much the same too. Like I was so impressed with kind of everything they did around the scenes where they're in Japan and at Pride events, like both the fighting, the behind the scenes stuff, the like backstage stuff. They're doing so many little touches there. Even like the press conference stuff, it's exactly how it was when you see it in the documentary. And that's the stuff where you can tell like somebody really took the time, like the loving attention to detail in this movie is really
Have you ever
impressive.
met Stephen Quadros?
Oh yeah, we worked together. He was a commentator for the IFL for a long time.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We spent many times riding in cabs together and hanging out in hotel bars together.
One of my favorite things. I'd never met him. But Tap Out used to have this big compound in the Inland Empire of California, and they would occasionally have these little parties. And I went to one of them because I was doing a piece on Dan Hardy, who was invited. So I went with him, and Quadros was there. and he's like playing the drums. I go and he's playing this drum kit. Yeah, he's in there playing the drums. Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is cool, man. He comes up to me because he recognizes me, and he goes, hey, man, how you doing? And he squeezes my arm here, and he's like, is that Muay Thai? That's how he said hello. Yeah. I was like, that's the greatest introduction I think I've ever had in my life. But that dude is a character, man.
He is a character. And like, there are still several stories he told me about just like other people he knew in the mixed martial arts world. Like, just like the guy's a raconteur, and he would tell me these stories, and I'm still thinking about some of them, and years later being like, wait, was that true?
I know.
Like that kind of stuff. Dude. Yeah, you hear his voice and you know it's him immediately.
Yeah, well, look, this all sounds very exciting. I'm actually really excited.
Yeah,
to
me
see
too,
it.
man.
I'm very jealous that Ben. Look, I mean, there's a cinema in Blanchardstown. If anyone wants to get on the phone to Petesy Carroll, like, nope,
yeah.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it if you want. They probably won't give me popcorn, but I can do that. Listen, we have got to take one. Listen, I can't have guests like this on the fucking show without trying to get some money back. You know what I mean? We gotta get the ads flowing here. So we're gonna be back, and I know you're all dying for us to talk about yesterday's press conference, which is endlessly entertaining. We've compiled the best bits for all of you. We also have to talk about the UFC card because, shocker, spoiler alert, Kelvin Gastelum has missed weight once again, this time by 5 pounds. And of course, I want to fill you all in on this big rematch in Belfast. I've been doing lots of research. We'll be back after the break.
Back in your life! Finally!
We have a lot to talk about.
I didn't care about a big fight or money. I cared about the heavyweight title. That's all I've ever been bothered about.
Join us for the entire first round live on Yahoo Sports.
This is the biggest shock of the draft.
Super Bowl 59 on Radio Row with Jaden Daniels.
Put me on the spot like that.
Here with first-time Olympian Stephen Curry. You and LeBron's relationship has had to evolve.
And see blood on the other side, but still have the utmost respect for who you're playing against.
You know, alerts on your phone. Oh, KD's thinking about leaving. Like, where is this coming from?
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. They don't put a gold jacket on your back and you don't know what you're doing.
The head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh.
It's like being around greatness.
How does that feel when you hear that? Shedeur Sanders, future
NFL
quarterback.
You're the first one like I ever hear say that. Like, that's wild. But I'm thankful.
And they're going to be here for a long time.
Now to a fun part of today's program.
Like, I literally went to college with Chris Paul. Like, he's still in the NBA.
He could not hit another home run all year. It'd be a great season.
Yes, correct. I got to make an admission first, A-Rod.
Oh, God.
I grew up a Boston Red Sox fan.
I knew that.
I used to hate you.
I've gotten to a point where I can smell you guys.
And I think winning with the Buccaneers put him at a completely different level. He has the greatest resume of any quarterback in football history.
They have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win it. The realist in me says that ain't happening at all.
I don't want to treat you like a regular journalist because I feel like me and you have a good relationship.
I would put Travis Hunter in that same category as those two players. The difference between he and Rome Odunze, Travis Hunter is just a special athlete.
I actually think this is a smart decision by them.
This is what we're going to bring in. This is who we are. This is the style that we're doing.
And it was a long, beautiful conversation.
What a fun interview, Dave.
Thanks, Coach.
You not like all talked out after talking to people for so long?
This is my life.
Okay.
I could do this for 8 hours.
Got it.
Wow.
And we are back on the Crackheads. I hope you enjoyed that fantastic review. I'm selfishly looking forward to this part of the show. Yesterday, I was inundated with clips from this wonderful press conference in Las Vegas for a massive fight. Undeniably, a great fight. I'm sure we're going to talk about all of this. But a very, very interesting scene yesterday with Turki Al-Sheikh, Dana White. Their relationship will also be explored at some point. But it wasn't quite the easy press conference that Dana White has been used to on his UFC events. Bit of a curveball thrown fairly early on. I think we're about 10 minutes into the podcast, lads, when one brave man with beautiful long hair got up and he tried to put the world to right with regard to the Ali Revival Act. I believe we have a clip, Mr. On Air Jordan.
Couple questions for Dana. Dana, this fight, as you said earlier in the week, is set to be the third highest gate in combat sports history, the second biggest gate you've promoted alongside Mayweather McGregor. The top 5 gates in combat sports history come in boxing, and they come in the last 10 years. So my question to you is, why then do you want to make sweeping changes to the Muhammad Ali Reform Act that is meant to protect fighters to bring about a business model that currently has your company already paid out $375 million in antitrust lawsuits and has 2 potential pending class action lawsuits on the way as well?
Well, this is obviously a long discussion. If you want to talk to me about that, set up an interview. This isn't about me and my business. It's about these 2 guys on Saturday night.
My follow-up, Dana, earlier this week, the California State Athletic Commission had a hearing about TKO trying to bring those changes to the Ali Act, and it was postponed 3 months.
Listen, I get it. You want to showboat right now. Set up an interview with me if this is really what you want to talk about.
It's America, baby.
If you have
First
questions
Amendment.
for these 2, ask them and you can set up an interview with me.
Dana, my follow-up is, if TKO can't make those changes to the Ali Act, will you still invest in the sport of boxing? Will you compete in the market?
Listen, if you want to be an asshole, let's do it in private and we can do an interview.
Yes or
if
no?
you want to showboat, I get it. If you have questions for these 2 that are fighting on Saturday, that's a different story.
Fight.
This isn't a discussion to have at a press conference for these 2 that are going to fight on Saturday, 2 legends. If you want to set up an interview with me and ask me these questions, let's do it one-on-one.
Sounds
and
good.
you can ask me anything you want.
All right. Well, Terence and Saul, have a good fight.
Yeah, you have a question for these 2?
No.
No? Beat it.
There it is, lads. Dana White shocked to be asked a real question at press conference.
He's
Ben,
trying to sell something, damn it. Why are you guys out here trying to ask him questions? I mean, I guess maybe the question to ask him is, if the only questions you want to hear at the press conference are for the 2 guys fighting, why are you there? Why have Dana White standing there in the middle at the podium there? Like, what are you there for if the only questions we want to hear and the answers we want to hear are the 2 guys fighting?
It's a sad state of affairs when it seems so out of place. Like, I can't help but watch that in the UFC theme. It's like the press conference we see at UFC events, and this guy gets up to ask this question, and it sticks
Looking
out
like a
sore
young
thumb.
Anthony Kiedis, by the way.
Kind of did.
Give it away.
I love it.
I don't know who this guy is.
Mad respect for that guy.
Yeah, me too, man.
Honestly, but Chuck, it's weird this week because I don't know if you saw, Ariel kind of broke this down on the show on Wednesday, I believe it was. He did an interview with PBS Las Vegas as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman who was interviewing was so well prepared, and he was kind of trying to bat off the questions, and she just stuck to task. And he honestly just didn't seem like he had anywhere to go with his answers. He was just kind of stuck, and she was kind of peppering him with questions with regard to the Revival Act, with regard to the payment of fighters. Is it a surprise to you that how ill-prepared Dana White is for these questions when he is, in fact, getting into boxing, when it is a massive story within that sport, what they are trying to accomplish here?
You almost wonder if he thought that, it was going to be like a UFC press conference, right? Because we're so used to, at this point, it kind of just being a ridiculous kind of circusy environment, and there's really nothing of consequence being discussed or asked. That's what it seemed like in this. I didn't see the actual PBS one, but I do think that he seems to be a little caught off guard by this. And it's kind of crazy because this has been a big story. We've talked about it on here plenty of times. I know Ariel's been talking about it. This is something that I think as people who've followed the UFC and we understand the model and understanding what that means if you're trying to force that model into the boxing realm, and at the same time you are trying to have things amended in that Ali Act to basically enable you to do that. That's the big story of this. Unfortunately, that is when you watch this event and Zuffa Boxing and Dana on that podium, that's the first thing that comes to mind. That is the very first thing that comes to mind is like, how is this going to work? What is your intention with boxing? How are you going to do it? So for him to be unprepared, or because to me, it struck me like he literally didn't think that he was going to be asked about that. Didn't it feel that way? Like he was caught off guard. That's crazy to me. You would think that he would be a little more prepared just to have some kind of stock answer there rather than calling the guy an asshole. And I think for all of us who don't go to these events, I know how it is. There's a big pressure in that room. Everybody wants to cheer. They want to be on Dana's side. They want to be on the fighter's side. So they start booing you if you actually do this, and then he gets mad at you. They're against you. They're with him. But the great thing was, it's a boxing realm. You have Canelo almost sticking up for the questions themselves. That was kind of fun. Like that, it turned into something else when he when he himself said, "Hey, boxing's big before you got here." That type of thing.
Yeah, it's we actually have the clip here of Max Kellerman. Like, kind of crazy for me to see Max Kellerman like this, because I don't know, was it like 15 years ago? I thought he was like the gold standard. I thought he was like the best guy, like, a real down the middle journalist when it came to boxing, like someone to admire. And I'm not saying just because of his performance this week that's completely scrap, but
he was anything but a bootlicker, right? Like at the time, he was the guy who went at you all the time. He went at you with hard questions.
There's just this fight is great. Like, I'm gonna watch the shit out of this fight. I like it. Like, Alvarez a legend. Terence Crawford's my favorite fighter probably at the moment in boxing. It's a great fight. It deserves all these bells and whistles. But there's this fawning element to everything around this fight. And we have an example of it here with Max Kellerman towards the end. And as Chuck mentioned, Canelo Alvarez has a bit to say when he goes out of his way to pour compliments all over the great Dana White.
And for the first time in so long, the people bringing you this present love boxing. Let me start with His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh. Let me start with him, because if he's never born, none of us are here right now. This was his idea. And then Dana White. Dana White is the greatest combat sports promoter in my lifetime. He built an institution. You know why boxing's not as popular as it used to be anymore, right? UFC is really popular. That's because of Dana White. He built something like the NBA. Stop now, because he's about to do it for boxing again. For boxing now. You want an NBA or an NFL in boxing? Here it comes. Because he knows how to build an institution. And how do you do that?
Hey Max. Boxing is always bigger and big. Don't say boxing is not big enough. Boxing is big. You know how big is boxing.
Should it get bigger, yes or no? Should it get bigger, Canelo?
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be bigger, but look, boxing is always big and big and bigger and bigger and bigger. We need to talk about that too. Boxing is boxing.
I love Canelo in English, by the way. I love
it.
What'd Bud say?
He said amen or something like that. Oh my God.
Oh my Lord, man.
Thank God. I mean, how much longer might that have gone on if Canelo had not
Thank
stepped
God
in
for
there?
Canelo, man.
It is like, that is over the top and just kind of embarrassing to watch a man do that. Especially like the idea that, like, if this specific person isn't born, none of us are here. Well,
I know. Man.
I mean, it's somebody else could have been born to use the Saudi wealth fund to like pour into combat sports like that. Let's not act like it was such a visionary idea. Like, what if we made big fights by paying the guys a whole lot of money? Like that. That's not exactly Thomas Edison coming along and inventing the light bulb right there, you know? And we gotta like heap this praise on Dana White there for it. It just, moments like that, you know, where you're just going like, did we have a talk behind the scenes where we were like, well, I must have my ego stroked for at least, 30, 45 seconds at this press conference. Otherwise we're not doing it, because it's ridiculous. And there's no point to it. Like, it's clearly you can hear from the fans, they're not there for that, man. They like, no one is there to watch Dana White or Turki Al-Sheikh. They're there to watch the fighters. Like, that's what's getting everybody excited, is these two fighters. And to forcefully take the focus off of them and put it on like the money guys behind it is obviously ridiculous. And you can tell that the fans recognize that by Canelo stepping in. I'd also point out, this is one of the big differences that you see from boxing and MMA, is that there is a fighter up there who knows he has the power and the ability to speak up and say, shut up.
True.
Stop praising the bosses so much. Stop licking the boot. It's unnecessary. We are big time. We have been big time, because he knows You're not going to have this show without Canelo. We're not the same as what we've created in the UFC, where a lot of these guys are interchangeable parts. He also has already made so much money from boxing that even if he never fights again, he's totally fine. And there's a reason, like, to praise everything and be like, hey, Dana White's going to bring what he did for the UFC over to boxing. If I were one of these boxers making a ton of money, I'd be like, please don't do that, because there's a reason all those MMA guys are trying to get into boxing, and it's never going the other way. It's because the top boxers make so much more of the money and just keep so much more of the money that is made than the top UFC fighters. And so just when you were up there saying, hey, he's going to bring that same thing to boxing, to those guys, especially if they're paying attention and have been paying attention, that sounds like a threat and not a promise. And as for the question about like why Dana seemed uncomfortable, especially that PBS, that I also saw that Vegas PBS one. And my first thought, Pete C, when seeing that was, this is why he doesn't do these. This is why he does not keep it. This is why he would much prefer to go on a podcast with somebody who, you know, they're not in this world. They're just kind of like a general men's interest kind of podcast, or general sports interest kind of podcast. They don't know the MMA world, the combat sports world, because he can say anything he wants to them. They don't know. They don't know enough to push back. They don't know what is actually going on in this world. They'll just accept whatever he says. And it's a much more comfortable environment. But it's also like, if you're in the gym and you're only sparring with the sparring partners you know you can beat up, the people who aren't really prepared, you go out there and you get yourself into a real fight with somebody who is not here to play nice with you and not here to do all the things you've come to expect in the gym, you look unprepared. And I think that's exactly what happened. He'd been sparring with the puppies on these podcasts, and then he went out there and got himself in a conversation with somebody who had done their homework and was ready to press him on it, and he was not prepared for that. And I think his answer to that is probably going to be like, let me not do any more of these.
Can I just say that, like, you know, Max and Dana have an interesting kind of like history, because way back in the day, Max was, like you're mentioning, about 20 years ago, and Max was kind of a boxing face, and I think he was a guy who actually was bringing a youthful element to the sport, a bigger opinion and a bigger enthusiasm towards it. And he was more of a hard-hitting, tell it how it is kind of personality within that. Dana was seeking his approval. I remember doing a piece with Max Kellerman in 2004, all the way back then, where for Stop Smiling magazine, I think it was, where I just did this, you know, this kind of general personality profile type thing, and Max used that analogy that Dana later adopted about the four corners. Max used it and said, and so I'm almost positive that Dana got that from Max. Now, and over the course of time, they've had just an interesting thing. I think Dana has always sought for Max's approval. I think now he has a bit of a blind spot for Dana in reverse. Like, it's almost like, well, you've done a lot for me, and now it's kind of like come back the other way. Because I remember when Max got on Twitter, on X or whatever, but at Twitter at the time, he put out like, hey, I'm on Twitter, and Dana immediately said, follow this guy or whatever. He did something like that, and he's like, this is what happens when Dana says to follow you on Twitter, and he had like 10,000 followers in the first day. Do you remember this? Like, I know it's kind of a weird detail, but that's the kind of thing that they have. So it's a little weird to hear Max up there doing this, because we know that he is probably it's one of these things you're like, dude, you're being obsequious over a guy who it's like somebody who hasn't paid close attention. You just paid peripheral attention to a guy who's been very good to you over the years. That's what that was.
Obsequious. This is why this man's writing a book, PC.
God,
You hear that?
It's called that. It's called obsequious.
Completely lost me. I got lost. I just started staring at the wall. Fuck, I hope he doesn't ask me about this.
From the people who brought you hats.
It's interesting what you're both saying, and they did, like, look, this press conference is to build the fight, right? Like, that's essentially what they're usually for. But unfortunately, like, with the kind of talk from Kellerman here and the way the questions went, the talking points are all regarding Dana White and Turkey coming out of this. And
that's the thing, is like, you're opening the door to have the business conversation at that point, because you want to shine this light on it. And so it's more than fair for somebody to come in and ask about the specifics of that when you guys decided to make that such a focal point.
And I also don't think he's going to grant that kid that request for that interview. I don't think he's
really
going to do
hope
that.
He does. I want to see the young Anthony Kiedis with the balls of steel. I want to see that guy get a sit down with Dana White, and let me know when that one is, and I will be glued to that one.
Well, let's have a look at this relationship between Turki Al-Sheikh and Dana White, because I think I think we all said when this was first announced on this very show that one of the most obvious things that could possibly go wrong here is the clash of egos. These are two big dogs, and now they're playing in the same yard. And there appears to be a moment at the very end that's very awkward where Turkey seems to suggest that Dana's about to break some news. Let's have a look at that one, Mr. On Air Jordan.
There is big surprise from Dana White. He will announce it now.
Thanks for coming out tonight, everybody. We appreciate it. We're going to face these guys off for photo ops. We'll see you at the weigh-ins.
Oh.
Head scratch.
That is something else. Oh.
Head scratch. That's what I was like, wait.
Man, that is awkward. Like, look, let's just put it out there. There were questions about where this was going to happen very early on. It seemed like Dana's position within the promotion, there was definitely some conversations out there saying that it may be compromised. He came out and said, that's why you don't trust the media, talking all this bullshit. I don't know if anyone actually published a story saying Dana White is off this. We were just getting that kind of scent. This, to me, suggests this might not have the legs that we may have thought it would at the beginning, Chuck.
It's a very interesting look, man, because and Dana had complained at another juncture fairly recently where he's like, Turkey probably shouldn't have said that yet. This is one of those things that you kind of wait on. Remember this? He was kind of reprimanding this. And I think that Turkey operates more on the speed of his own impulse. Like we've seen him do this, whereas Dana has learned over the years, honestly, to not do that because he used to do that. He used to do that all the time. And I think that there's something in him now that's like, he's done this a long time. And whatever the hell this big surprise, did we find out what this was? I don't know anything.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm guessing that there's reasons that they are not rolling that out there. And but this is exactly where it's at because you have a guy in Turkey who I think he snaps his fingers and things happen, right? And I don't think you're going to be able to play that with Dana White. Not if you want Dana to be effective.
Am I the only one who, if I had been in a Dana White situation, I would have immediately scrambled to be like, what could I say? I'm gonna run the New York City Marathon. Like, just
I'm
like
finally gonna jump off the Mandalay Bay for that.
Yeah, I'm doing that base jumping off the Mandalay Bay that I was supposed to do. I'm finally doing it. Like I would have so quickly tried to like scramble and be like, what can I say?
I know exactly. Play it off.
Chuck Mindenhall is writing a book, everybody.
It's like it does feel like the kind of situation you would have an anxiety dream about. It's like you're at a friend's wedding and they're like, and now to give a speech, and you're like, what? I didn't plan a speech.
Ding ding ding.
There's obviously been earlier in the week there was news from boxing saying that they were denied credentials here. Like this is again, Ben, we had a chat about this in our message group among ourselves. Shocked by this, right?
Yeah, it's unlike anyone from the Saudi power structure there to interfere with the Fourth Estate. That's not usually. They're very hands off with the media. I thought we were done playing the credential game in combat sports, just because what's the point? What do you gain by it? All you managed to do was create for yourself this annoyingly negative headline and make it look like you are trying to hide something, or you're trying to keep some people out because they might have too critical an eye or something. And what do you actually accomplish? Like it's not like this website that you don't like is gonna go away because they can't get credentials to this fight. Everything is out there. They can write off the same stuff that everybody else is doing. They can write off the same interviews. We're seeing the same press conferences. The damn thing is on Netflix. Like, what do you think you're accomplishing? The way you get a website to go out of business is wait. Like the media forces are crumbling, and
That's
you can
so
just
true.
be like, all right, that's what.
Just be patient.
Yeah, that's what'll take care of it. Trying to mess with them just creates a story where there doesn't need to be one, and it's not like you would have suffered at all from giving them a credential and letting them come cover the event. They're going to be able to do all the same stuff, and you want that's why you're having a press conference, is because you are trying to gather the media, give them talking points, give them headlines to write coming out of this thing, so that it helps increase the visibility and people know that there's a fight on Saturday night. That's the entire idea of the thing. And when you're getting mad at somebody asking a real question, that's essentially what you're saying is, hey, you're supposed to be here helping us promote this fight,
Right.
and we're not interested in anything that doesn't do that. And if you're trying to keep media people away from the event meant to promote the fight, you're defeating the purpose of the entire thing.
Are you guys surprised at all, like how, like if this used to happen, there was at least a lingering, like, concern about it, and people would be talking about it. We'd be bringing it up when Josh Gross, and Loretta Hunt and those types way back in the day. We talked about it for years. It wasn't like it was something that just kind of went away. And in fact, when I was at ESPN was lobbying for Josh to still get in and still being denied. And it was like one of those things that, so it just kept the discussion going, that this was this ridiculous, petty, made no sense vendetta that was going on. But it was almost like with the UFC, the original UFCs, especially because it was such a diehard, and everybody was kind of working together to make it bigger. It felt like, well, the privilege is to be here, right? Like there's a privilege to be this. Whereas these long tenured media like Lance Pugmire and like, people who've been decorated in the space for a long time, them being denied is not it's not a privilege to go to the event anymore. You're covering the event, and obviously, like, the idea is to go tell the truth of what's going on. And I find that, like, I find it somewhat disturbing that these days it doesn't even make a big wave. I don't know if we'll be talking about it in another week. Things move so fast, but I'm like, it feels like we're so used to this behavior now that it's not treated as the big deal that it once was.
It's just, it's crazy to me that all of the talking points in the press conference is nothing about the fight. It's all about this situation. It's all about the power structure behind the fight. And I was watching all the coverage of this fight. I watched all the embeddeds, everything. I love embedded, Ben. You love embedded too. And it was all
watching those haircuts, watching the baggage claim. Yeah.
But, like everything for the first 10 minutes of the first episode of Embedded, or I don't know if it was the countdown or whatever it was, it's just like Canelo buying things. It's like, look at this watch. It costs $900K.
Put it in the basket.
Let's get on my private jet and we'll have my chef present me with this sushi meal. They arrive at his house. There's two granite hands coming out of the fucking driveway. And then he's like, I love coming home to watch my daughter at our equestrian center. Walks around the corner. He's got a full-blown fucking equestrian center.
I think we've all said that at least once in our lives.
Yeah. And, universal experience right there.
Yeah. But I was finding it very difficult to get excited for the fight. And I have to say, I don't know if I was until I read Elliot Worsel's piece on Terence Crawford. And that guy is so fucking talented. And we said this before on the show. If you need to whet your appetite for this fight, please go over to Uncrowned and read Elliot's piece on Bud. It's absolutely sensational. He's one of these guys that has always been awkward. And that's part of his allure if you're a boxing fan, I guess. But it's always also been a blockage for him to become a superstar. This is now his opportunity to become a superstar, and Elliot does a great job of describing that, how it's a contradiction to the rest of Terence Crawford's career, with great quotes from Billy Nelson, who was the coach of Lewis Crocker, who we'll talk about now in a minute, and Ricky Burns back in the day, who Crawford defeated. But lads, I guess my question is, like, have you got excited for this fight that if someone had told you, last year it was happening, you'd say, fuck, I can't wait for that? Like, are you feeling the buzz for this?
I'll go first, Ben. I think I'm excited about it because I think it's two names that you've contemplated a long time that have their own auras over the course of time. I do believe. Oh, what do we got here?
Oh, bit of a face-off there.
Look at that.
You can keep talking.
Okay, I can keep talking through this. All right, this is all new to me. But you wonder if it had happened after the Errol Spence, like after Bud had that fight. I thought that he could not be bigger than he could. It was as big as he could possibly get. I think the Madrimov fight kind of maybe slowed the roll because it was up a weight class. Now he's going up 2. I think there's a little bit of there's a little bit more of an asterisky thing to that than there could have been if it had happened sooner. But at the same time, man, as we've seen in boxing, how often do you get this kind of fight? It rarely happens. And I think for that alone, man, just knowing that both guys where it's very difficult to imagine either guy losing, that's what makes it fun for me.
What about you, Mr. Fowlkes? Are you feeling the buzz for the biggest fight of all time?
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling some buzz just for a long time leading up to this, because I think that this is one of those fights people can get into because it brings together so many different questions, so many different variables that you're trying to weigh. Like, for one thing, after Canelo's last fight, I think a lot of people are going, is Canelo still Canelo? And that creates an interesting question. And then there's the question of the weight for Terence Crawford. I mean, it seemed like this was something he's been eyeing for a while. And so you wonder how it's going to go. I thought, Darshan had a good piece for us earlier where Andre Ward had been talking about how he thought, I think when he was on Ariel's show, how he thought this was going to play. And he was making a good point that, like, at some level, when you're going up in weight, if you've been cutting weight, you're not necessarily having to completely reshape your body. You're just not damaging your body with the weight cut any longer, and that maybe at a certain point, like, you are not losing so much. You are gaining something by making that weight cut process easier for yourself. And like those kinds of questions, those kinds of variables, I think go a long way to getting people interested. But I also think the fact that we're doing this one on Netflix, that we're creating a thing that it seems like everybody can watch kind of together. There are so few of those things anymore. We live in such a fractured media environment now. Everybody's kind of off, siloed into their own worlds, into their own interests. And that was one of the things I think we got out of that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson event, even though we did not necessarily get any great boxing out of that particular part of the show. It felt like something, hey, everybody is watching this and talking about it on social media. We're all kind of tuned into the same thing and having a conversation at least about the same subject, which is so rare now. And I think that this provides you with the opportunity to have that back again. I also think it puts the UFC Noche event on the same night in a kind of a weird situation too, because it's like I went to the UFC.com earlier this week, the official website of the UFC, and just like plastered right there. It's like Canelo Crawford, watch the Uncrowned stuff. And then it's like, you kind of got to scroll around and it's like, by the way, the UFC, whose website this is, also has a separate event this weekend. We'll probably send some of our company representatives over there, that creates a weird thing, especially since it's the Noche thing, which last year was a huge deal at the Sphere. Dana White was talking about that one for like a year, like just building that thing up. We were so into it. And now we're kind of doing like a plan C sort of thing. And even the UFC can't be bothered to pay much attention to it.
I have a column up right now about this very thing, because I was there in Las Vegas last year, and I would see Canelo occasionally in the hotel, like kind of walking around, and there's this huge amount of people, but the UFC had the Sphere. So it was like, okay, you've got these two huge entities here on the same weekend, and they were kind of competing, although I felt like Canelo still in the end was like kind of the king for that weekend, right? At Mexican Independence, like he's still the kind of the king. You'd see everybody everywhere you went. That was going on, and you get to this one, and it's almost like it's crazy. I was pointing out that the UFC fighters, you can't blame them for having a little bit of FOMO and a little bit of like dad's with his other family this weekend. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's like, you know what I mean? Because Dana's like, he's not going to be in San Antonio, he's going to be in Las Vegas, and it's like it's just such it's a strange thing. If you'd said 10 years ago that that Dana would be promoting Canelo. You know what I mean? Versus some big event like this, with a supposedly big event for the UFC, you would have been like, "That's insane. There's no way he's the identity of the UFC."
Yeah,
it's a crazy
on the
weekend.
prelims is going to do the Dana 50 G's, baby, and you're going to be like, "He ain't here, man.
I know.
He's not even going to see this."
Hold those thoughts for 1 minute, lads. We'll be back to give our takes, our picks, everything like that. We'll be talking about Belfast. We'll be talking about UFC Noche after this quick break.
Back in your life! Finally!
We have a lot to talk about.
I didn't care about a big fight or money. I cared about the heavyweight title. That's all I've ever been bothered about.
Join us for the entire first round live on Yahoo Sports.
This is the biggest shock of the draft.
Super Bowl 59 on Radio Row with Jaden Daniels.
Put me on the spot like that.
Here with first-time Olympian Stephen Curry. You and LeBron's relationship has had to evolve.
And see blood on the other side, but still have the utmost respect for who you're playing against.
Alerts on your phone. Oh, KD's thinking about leaving. Like, where's this coming from?
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders.
They don't put a gold jacket on your back and you don't know what you're doing.
The head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh.
It's like being around greatness.
How does that feel when you hear that? Shador Sanders' future NFL quarterback.
You're the first one I ever hear say that. Like, that's wild. But I'm thankful.
And they're going to be here for a long time.
Now to a fun part of today's program.
Like, I literally went to college with Chris Paul. Like, he's still in the NBA.
He could not hit another home run all year and be a great season.
Yes, correct. I got to make an admission first, A-Rod.
Oh, God.
I grew up a Boston Red Sox fan.
I knew that.
I used to hate you.
I've gotten to a point where I can smell you guys.
And I think winning with the Buccaneers put him at a completely different level. He has the greatest resume of any quarterback in football history.
They have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win it. The realist in me says that ain't happening at all.
I don't want to treat you like a regular journalist because I feel like me and you have a good relationship.
I would put Travis Hunter in that same category as those two players. The difference between he and Rome Odunze, Travis Hunter is just a special athlete.
I actually think this is a smart decision by them. This is what we're going to bring in. This is who we are. This is the style that we're doing.
And it was a long, beautiful conversation.
What a fun interview, Nate.
Hey, thanks, Coach. You not like all talked out after talking to people for so long?
This is my life.
Okay.
I could do this for 8 hours.
Got it.
Wow.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We actually have some footage of the weigh-ins on our Jordan has just informed me. Before we make our picks, maybe we should just have a look at these lads weighing in. Lovely selection there. Calvin Klein, white, very
Love the
nice.
delicate step on the scale. Like if I ease onto it, maybe it'll think I'm lighter.
I do the same thing in my bathroom every morning.
Yeah.
Standing on the edge of the scale. Oh, I'm doing fine.
Pushing on the toe.
And my God, Crawford has put on some serious size here for this fight. Obviously, moving up 2 weight divisions.
What did he come in at?
I don't know. Jordan, you don't have the fucking numbers for us. Like, this is important details.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, 167.5. Very nice. So I guess both 167.5. Very, very nice. Who wants to go first? Who wants to make the pick? Go on, someone.
I'll go first. I'm taking Crawford.
Oh, look at this guy.
Just got a feeling. You know, I think maybe vibes is off for Canelo. And also maybe, you know, father time gets to us all. Tough to keep going out there with the same hunger when you're thinking about how you'd rather be watching your daughter at the equestrian center.
At the back of your house.
Yes.
You know, I don't know. It's possible that, like, another point that Andre Ward did make, I think, when he was talking to Ariel, was he was like, hey, look, if you're looking at the last Canelo fight, that's kind of like a preseason game for him. He's not showing you everything.
That's true,
He's not showing you everything that's in the playbook. That could be. But I don't know. Maybe it's just that I like Terence Crawford, and I think that if anybody can go up and wait and get it done, I think he can.
It's funny too. I feel like there's something like he's still got up his sleeve. Like, I don't know why, because I maybe it's because we didn't see it in the Madrima fight, which I guess some people might have thought he sleptwalked through a little bit too. But at the same time, I just feel like he's got this like we still haven't seen like his that real follow up to the Errol Spence fight. So I feel like this is it. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna go him too. I just think that he's so good, dude. He's so good, and so it's like it's harder for me to imagine him like losing.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm gonna go with Crawford.
Well, making it a clean sweep. So
yeah,
Mr. Bristol, I am blaming you for this with your beautiful words.
Steered you.
That you put me down. I was reading it last night going, oh man, this is fucking, he's gonna do it, isn't he? He's gonna fucking do it. So it's completely your fault, Elliot. I am also picking.
By the way, what a great angle he took on that piece, you know, like where he's asking the question, the kind of nonsense questions that the guys get asked, and he's like trying to get pry this guy open. It's so great. What a great way to go about that.
It's what you think. Like,
yeah, I know exactly
in that situation.
That was a writer's writer piece right there. That was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. As I said, I am in Belfast, lads. I got a quick word with Mr. Eddie Hearn yesterday, who is fucking incredible. Like, in terms of a promoter, I'm not trying to say he's the most ethical guy in the world. He definitely isn't. He's a boxing promoter. But in terms of doing his fucking job, this guy is class. Like, he is. Even the press conference yesterday, the press conference is here. They have a set here. They have a set there. It's just massive. As a media guy, it felt like just everything was kind of, do you want a one-on-one with Eddie? Can we sort that out for you? Yeah, that would be great. You know, like real kind of access, real, there was fighters hanging around. You could have grabbed them. Kind of remind me of the old days of the UFC where everybody's really trying to get themselves in front of cameras. The clip we're going to show you is a reaction to, again, the PBS interview we talked about earlier, where Dana kind of said, Yeah, my involvement in this new boxing thing with Turkey is being Contender Series for these big ring cards, essentially. That's how most people understood it. So I asked Mr. Hearn about that.
Dana White did an interview with PBS yesterday, and he has now said essentially that his side of this new thing with TKO and Turkey Al-Sheikh, he'll be like the Contender Series to the ring cards. At least that's what it sounds. What do you make of all of this? It seems to have changed from what we first thought Dana and Turkey.
It's what I said the league was. It's lower level fighters and young prospects who they believe they can build into big stars, to big pay-per-view stars. I don't think it works, but will it, these guys are very powerful, they're very clever, and I'm sure they're going to come up with something compelling. But in boxing, that's not a new format. That's been done before. We're all trying to build stars. Now, to do it in a league with some different kind of marketing and profile and storylines, yeah, maybe you can unearth a talent, but people want to watch the big stars fight. That's the reality. They want to watch great fights between people they know. So, yeah, it is what I've always known it to be. I'm sure TKO will have a different, they're obviously involved in the fight this weekend. That's a massive fight. So, but yeah, the league, I think it will be a great format. But I don't think it's really going to, start dominating boxing.
Well, there it is. They certainly will dominate this weekend with this amazing fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. But let me tell you, lads, up here in the north of Ireland, in Belfast, I've been just kind of being subtle. I'm like, are you looking forward to the fight this weekend? Only one person out of 10 has mentioned the word Canelo to me when I asked them that question. Everyone else is completely locked in for Lewis Crocker v. Paddy Donovan, their second meeting. It feels like it is, and Paddy Donovan has said as much, this will be the new face of Irish boxing. This is the first time two Irishmen have ever contested a world title fight. It is going to be in Windsor Park, the Northern Ireland's home ground. Also Linfield FC's home ground. Linfield, they are Lewis Crocker's favourite team. They have an alignment with the Protestant community here in Northern Ireland. He's been a guest of honour of theirs. Obviously, we have Paddy coming up from the south, but really, there's just so much respect between these two guys. I have a piece coming out about this on Unground. It might be out today or tomorrow. And really, it's an amazing thing to see. And Donald McCrae, who I've mentioned many times on this show, wrote a brilliant book about how boxing kind of rose above the sectarian partition here when things were going down in like the 80s, the Troubles. Boxing was kind of above it all. The communities came together, and that's what I feel off this event. There is a huge amount of respect, but there is a huge amount on the line here. Lewis Crocker, 20,000 people expected at Windsor Stadium. Everybody here is talking about this fight. This town is boxing mad. Molly McCann is also making her debut on this card. Just so that people have an idea of the context of this, these guys fought in an IBF title eliminator back in March. It was in the SSE Arena, and this is what happened. Paddy Donovan in the yellow, he's wearing the Crown colours there because he is coached by Andy Lee. He got 2 points deducted for using his head, and certainly very much like an Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor situation, there was clashes of heads, but Andy Lee put it down to this leaning guard of Lewis Crocker's. At the end of the 8th round, he knocked him down, as you can see here. Donovan goes in for the kill. He hits him, but it's actually after the bell. We don't have sound, so when you see Crocker going down here, he says it's after the bell, and Paddy Donovan is disqualified. Now, since then, there has been appeals to the IBF, who then ordered this rematch. They mandated this rematch, and it is now for the IBF welterweight title because Boots Ennis has vacated his title. This is a huge, huge fight over here. This is possibly the biggest fight in Irish boxing history. I know that's been thrown around quite a bit. Obviously, there's been big dates before: Steve Collins, Chris Eubank, all these guys. But lads, if there is elements of the Canelo Crawford build that seem a bit soulless, this is one thing you cannot say about this fucking fight. This is on everyone's mind over here. It's going to be absolutely massive. Molly McCann set to make her pro debut on this card. I saw her at the press conference. She's in great spirits. Cut a very different figure to the person that made her UFC debut against Gillian Robertson all those years ago. And pretty much, she even said this to me. Like, she said, I was completely overwhelmed by this situation. She is coming in here, despite it being her pro debut, as a seasoned vet. She is a very heavy favorite to win the fight. I know Matchroom will want to put their promotional arm behind her. But lads, can I just ask, are you interested in Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan? I know it's a very Irish-centric fight, but has it drifted across the Atlantic at all? Any intrigue in this one, Chuck?
Well, I hadn't thought about it too much until you just went on that rant, man. But now I'm very interested in
I'm
that.
into it. You sold it to me just now.
I think you sold it, man. I'm very into it.
Also, can I just point out, I don't know if you were thinking of this, Chuck, but when Petesy's telling us, like, I'm taking the pulse of the city and only 1 in 10 people, and I'm like, I know where Petesy was doing his informal polls.
Church.
It wasn't at the library. I tell you that. When Petesy's out here just being like, I got to find a way I can expense these beers. Let's see. Let me go ask this guy over here on the next stool what he thinks of the big fight this week.
Oh, that's funny.
To get the pulse of these,
entirely wrong.
You need to meet the working man. You know what I mean?
You need to meet the fans where they are, and where they are is every bar up and down the main drag.
I love it though that that's the feeling. Is there any sentiment whatsoever about the Callum Walsh fight?
No.
Really?
Here's the thing. A weird thing about Callum Walsh is nobody really knew about him until Dana White started talking about him.
Okay. I wondered about that.
Yeah, I do think he's well liked. Like my favorite Irish boxing journalist, Gavin Casey, who's been on the show multiple times, who you've met, of course, Chuck. He's like very keen on him, but you know, he's from the same place. They're both from Cork, but he said as much to me. Like, I just don't know much about the guy. He had that fight in Dublin. It wasn't very well attended. But he is growing. He's growing. The buzz is growing for him, and obviously he's in this huge spot on the undercard of this Canelo Crawford card. But I mean, I just wonder, you know, this event's going to be on at probably 10. People are going to be leaving Windsor Stadium about 11. I'm sure they're going to be unpacking their thoughts on the event in the watering holes around Belfast. I wonder at 5 a.m. local time Belfast Sunday morning, how many of them are actually going to dig up the old Netflix and say, I forgot this other massive fight is happening. You know, it's crazy. But
you know, you come home, you throw some chicken tenders in the oven. You're like, do I rewatch Heat again? Or wait a minute, oh yeah, that fight is on.
Rewatching Heat is a good option though.
He's gonna win that
15-20 minutes into Heat, you know, and then you fall asleep on the couch. That's a classic move.
Elaine, every time she lets me pick a movie, she just kind of says, don't turn on Heat again. I'm like,
that's funny, man.
Fucking hell,
I've been in several relationships where I've tried to show a woman Heat. They don't appreciate it. They just don't like it, and that's fine. That's just something we're just gonna have to accept. That is a divide between the sexes.
Yeah, it's look, I cannot wait for this fight. I wonder if I'll still be awake for Canelo. We got an email today from Matchroom, and thank you so much, Matty Lawless, who sorted out that interview with Eddie. Just a pleasure to deal with all these guys. Honest to God, great people. The message we got today is, wear intelligent clothing. We are in Ireland. It is going to rain. We will give you a poncho, but that will not be enough.
Wow. Intelligent
clothing. Wow.
I mean, it's gonna. And the problem is, I already got drowned today. So I was texting Jordan. I was like, we better test this hotel Wi-Fi before we do the crack today. I'm just getting some lunch downtown. I'm gonna be walking home. Take me 30 minutes to walk home, and we'll log on. As I was walking home, the heavens opened. Had to fully change everything. So I've got no fresh clothes for tomorrow. I'm gonna stink in this fucking venue. So hopefully that poncho is stylish.
Here in Montana and in other northern parts of the United States, we have a saying that there is no bad weather. There is only bad clothes for the weather. So that's our way of saying wear intelligent clothing.
It's look, I cut us off. We were talking about Noche UFC earlier on, and I called it UFC Noche, and I know I did, and I apologize to everyone.
Everyone.
That's fine, man.
And you, Dana White, I'm sorry. I know you care about this card. I know people are poking fun at you because you're at the other thing. I know you care. I'll tell you what, Chuck. John Silva, he's a man who really fucking cares.
He's a wild man. He really is. He's a wild man. He always. Have you talked to him before? He always strikes me as a guy who's slightly touched or something.
Really? What gave you that impression? The guy who barks on his way to the cage? You think,
but like, I'll ask him. I ask him a simple question, and he like turns, throws his head back, and just starts laughing like he's having this whole internal dialogue, and and then he'll just come back and be like, "I'm just happy, man. I'm just happy to, you know." It's just he's such a different guy, but I feel like he's got. I feel like he's kind of in a weird way, like if you're gonna keep this fighting nerds sheen, whatever you want to call it, like where they're relevant, he's gonna maybe have to do some work here because some of these guys, obviously last week they got beat. A couple of the guys got beat. He's coming onto this one where he's the interloper essentially into a Noche card where the Mexican faithful is going to be backing Diego Lopez. So these guys are in bad situations, but I feel like it's kind of on him now to correct the ship, you know what I mean? Like to make it right. So I think he's got that in the back of his head. He was talking about that, and it was clear he kind of had a chip on his shoulder with that. So it should be fun. I mean, his fights are fun anyway, but I felt like he was really dialed in when I talked to him this week.
That is that quote that you led with there, the "I've already won" quote, I think is very fitting for him because that's when you watch him fight, especially you watch him in that Bryce Mitchell fight, that is the vibe you got from the moment he hit the curtain and came out there. It was like a celebration for him. And in the fight, you could see that he's really enjoying this and that he's almost sad he has to end it as soon as he does because he would like to stick around and enjoy the party a little longer. Like that is the kind of confidence and the ease with which he fights. Like, you know, we talked about this before, how there are some people, even great fighters, who really have to get over that mental hurdle and talk themselves into being comfortable, being seen that way, being out there, being the focal point, and having all that pressure on them while everybody's watching. And there are some people who seem like they are just born naturally loving it. And he seems like one of those guys. And I think that that is honestly a huge advantage in a fight.
How much is this fight being left behind? Like, I mean, I kind of cut us off there because we had to jump to the ad break earlier. But in terms of like you mentioned earlier, going on the website, Ben, and I've mentioned earlier the embeddeds starring Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford as opposed to these guys. It really does, like, how aware are people of this card? You know, like this used to be massive events, as you highlighted earlier, Chuck. Like this was. Noche UFC was a big deal. That was the Sphere event, right? Like you were at the Sphere event that time. It was absolutely massive. This feels like a complete afterthought this weekend.
You talking to me or you talking to Ben?
Either.
I wasn't at the Sphere event, so I assumed it was you.
Yeah, look, I was vague with that.
I mean,
lads. I thought you just jump up and grab it. You know,
it just feels like the UFC has done such a good job of putting itself in the forefront in the fans' mind with any event, right? Even through, you know, the pandemic, they've fortified themselves. They've done this. They've done this the whole time we've covered the sport. It feels very strange to watch UFC bury one of its own events, and that's what it feels like to me. Like this, to me, it feels like the Noche card is an afterthought. You know, and there are some other fights like Tatiana Suarez comes back. You know, there are some other fighters on there who you are very intriguing, and obviously I'll be tuning in, but I don't know how many people it's like it's on the, you know, it's on the ESPN Plus, you know, it's on ESPN Plus when the other one's going to be on Netflix and it's getting all the bells and whistles. Dana's going to be parked in Vegas with all of the power players, and it just feels like they're at the kids' table for this one, man. You know what I mean? Like they're operating on some much lesser scale. And even though the top fight I think is awesome, I love the main event, but if you look at the card itself, are you blown away by it? I feel like I don't really feel like there was any big special emphasis put on this one besides that main event.
No, it's not. And look, Kevin Gastelum again. I mean, how many times have we ran this segment on this show? It's fucking crazy. Do you think he thought it was off because he went on YouTube and he's like, oh, embedded is Terence Crawford and Canelo this week?
Let me order some cheesecake. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not fighting till next week. I mean, I'd be happy with that physique personally. Like that's
gonna hit the flex. Gonna hit the flex when he misses by 5 pounds.
Interesting, Ben. That is. What do you think of this? He hasn't gone for an ashamed pose at all. Like he doesn't seem to be upset about it at all.
Seems defiant in his facial expression on that one.
Well, look, lads, there is a lot of fights this weekend. I'm going to be in Belfast. You are going to be in America. There is fights in America, I guess. That one in Vegas. I will be watching the shit out of that as well. Look, I'd love to stay here and talk all day, but unfortunately, one of our team has to go and interview The Rock. Benny, excited? You buzzing for this one? What do you do to prepare yourself? You do a few jumping jacks, arm curls. What do you do?
I mean, that's what I do to prepare myself for any of these. I'm over there knocking out push-ups and things like that. But I am excited. I've got a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts after coming out of that movie. So I'm just wondering how many of them I'll be able to get in here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, listen, crackheads, you have a wonderful weekend. We are.
There it is.
Tried it
I
again.
really fucking forgot again, and I said last week that I'd write it down somewhere. I probably have it written down in my office. Pete, will your book with McGregor ever be released?
From prison, maybe.
No, no, that was Nick's 10 years ago, buddy. And
who's to stop you from just sitting down and writing something? Though?
The unauthorized book.
Funnily enough, that's what Connor wanted me to do at the time. Just fucking make it up. It's fine. Yeah. No, I think Chuck's will be coming a lot quicker than that one. But yes, we did attempt to write that book for several hours over the course of 2 years, but it didn't quite work out for us. But as John Kavanagh would say, win or learn.
Yeah.
do we have any other ones there, Jordan? Oh, Petesy, thoughts on NFL Week 1? Who's your team this year? Well, listen, I've put money on the Bills. I think Green Bay looked great. Had a big win there last night. Bit let down by Chuck's Denver Broncos. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought
still
big
stars.
Things.
That's all.
Yeah, Bo Nix, I mean, get the finger out of your ass, buddy, okay? This is meant to be your year. Let's fucking see something. You got fucking Javonte gone off to the Cowboys. He's going to be fucking running in touchdowns all over the fucking place. Like he's, who's that guy, Ezekiel something or other that they used to have? Anyway, I'm talking shy. Elliot, there we go.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't want to keep Ben from Dwayne Johnson.
He's got to go, man.
All right, we got to go. All right, last one.
Here we go.
PC. I just know this is the day that you remember say it wasn't, man. August Ulrich. I just want to thank you because it really shows your dedication and love for. All right, for your work.
I wish this were a bit, but this is like legit. You forgetting every single week.
It is legit. I'm here to tell you,
lads. I'm fucking. You know what I mean? Super chats. Who knew they existed? Anyway, Ben's got to go and interview The Rock.
All right.
We love you all. Thank you so much. See you next week. Enjoy the fight. Mwah.